The British Empire once ruled over a quarter of the world, from the deserts of Africa to the jungles of Asia. Its ships carried not only flags and soldiers, but silver, silk, spices, and blood. But how did this small island on the edge of Europe become the richest power on earth? What was the true cost of its wealth, and who paid the price? In the 16th century, England was not yet a mighty empire, just a kingdom surrounded by giants. Spain had the gold of the Americas. Portugal ruled the seas. France commanded vast armies. England had ambition. Its people looked across the horizon and saw opportunity in trade, in colonies, in conquest. The age of exploration had begun, and the English crown saw in it a path to power. Merchants became adventurers, adventurers became pirates, and pirates became nobles. Names like Francis Drake and Walter Raleigh sailed not just for glory, but for gold. Every ship that left London carried more than goods. It carried a dream, to turn the world into a market, and that market into wealth. By the 17th century, the foundation of Britain's wealth was being laid, not in England, but in distant lands. The East India Company was born, a corporation with its own army, its own navy, and a single goal: profit. It didn't just trade, it ruled. From Calcutta to Bombay, the company extracted spices, textiles, and opium, while local economies collapsed under its weight. Every piece of silk worn in London was woven by invisible hands thousands of miles away. Every spoon of sugar stirred into English tea came from plantations soaked in sweat and pain. The empire's wealth was built on the backs of others, slaves, laborers, and conquered peoples whose names were never written in the ledgers. Between the 17th and 19th centuries, Britain created one of the most brutal systems of profit in history, the Atlantic Triangle. Ships left England loaded with weapons and goods. They sailed to Africa, traded for enslaved men, women, and children. Those ships then crossed the Atlantic to the Americas, the infamous Middle Passage, where slaves were sold to work on sugar, cotton, and tobacco plantations. The same ships returned to England heavy with goods produced by those slaves. It was a perfect economic machine, efficient, profitable, and inhuman. By the 18th century, the profits from this system funded banks, ports, and the Industrial Revolution itself. The empire's wealth was not just built overseas, it was built upon suffering. Then came steam, steel, and smoke. The Industrial Revolution transformed Britain from a maritime power into a manufacturing titan. Textile mills in Manchester spun cotton from India. Factories in Birmingham forged weapons that armed the empire's soldiers. Railways stitched the colonies together, not for the benefit of the colonized, but for faster extraction of resources. Britain no longer needed to conquer through war alone. It conquered through markets, money, and machines. It created a global economy where London was the heart and the colonies were the veins. By 1850, the British pound had become the world's currency. The sun, they said, never set on the British Empire, but it did set on those who lived beneath its shadow. But wealth always comes with a price. The empire's riches created comfort at home and chaos abroad. In India, local industries were destroyed by British imports. In Africa, borders were drawn with rulers and ink, dividing nations that had stood for centuries. In Ireland, grain was exported even as people starved. For centuries, the empire seemed unshakable until the world it exploited began to awaken. Revolts, independence movements, and global wars tore at its foundations. And after World War II, the empire that had once ruled the seas was drowning in debt. The colonies it had exploited rose one by one to demand freedom. The empire's riches had faded, but its legacy of trade, inequality, and influence lived on. So how did the British Empire become rich? Not by chance, nor by virtue, but by design. It mastered trade, control, and exploitation like no power before it. It turned oceans into highways of wealth, and continents into ledgers of profit. But every empire built on inequality carries its own decay. Because no matter how vast the territory, how powerful the fleet, or how heavy the gold, an empire built on others' suffering can never truly prosper. The British Empire rose higher than any before it, and in its shadow, the world learned the real meaning of empire. That wealth without justice is just another form of ruin.